All right, now I'd love to introduce our next conversation, Roots of Embodied Resilience. Dr. Patterson is a nurse practitioner who founded her virtual practice, Vital Journey Wellness, to empower stressed out and traumatized women to find resilience. Her virtual coaching and consulting practice was born out of her own experiences with trauma-related health issues. Using integrative and functional medicine approaches, she coaches clients to support their body's natural healing properties using a variety of techniques. She believes in the innate wisdom of the body and her clients collaborating to find ways to restore health by tapping into each person's strengths. She's passionate about using high-level one-on-one service to help women truly transform. She earned her doctorate in nursing practice from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and in her free time, you can find her on a hike, in the garden, or in the kitchen cooking up some delicious and nutritious meals. Now, it is my pleasure to moderate this conversation, so let's get started. Now, welcome, Dr. Patterson. We're excited to speak with you today about building up the body's resilience against stress and trauma. But before we jump into today's questions, is there anything else you'd like to share about your personal or professional experience to help set the stage?
Oh gosh. Well, thank you, Mariella. Just first of all, thank you so much for letting me be here. I'm really excited. And I guess I would say I've been a nurse for over 10 years now, and I kind of stumbled into it. My family kind of coached me that way because my mom is a nurse too, but it's really, it's more than what I do. It's a lot of who I am as well. And so I love the work. I'm really happy to be here today and share some of what I've learned from my work through the years and the many people I've interacted with. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. So we've got limited time, and I know this is, a very important conversation. So I just want to, give you as much room, to dive in as deep as you'd like, and also to help our audience connect with you when we finish the conversation so they can continue to ask you questions. But just to start off, I would love for you to tell us the difference between stress and trauma.
Yeah. So I think about these things kind of broadly. So stress, when I think about that, it's anything that kind of challenges our body in some way. And sometimes that's a really good thing, right? We grow because of stress. Some stressors, I think it's common to think of them as very psychological, but they can be mechanical, like when we exercise, right? Or maybe chemical, like when we're exposed to toxins or things like that. So there's a lot of different stressors out there in the world. And trauma, I think about as something that really overwhelms our body. So it's a challenge, but it's something that overwhelms typically our body's resources. Sometimes, again, this is psychological. Sometimes it's very physical. These things often threaten our sense of self, our identity, and maybe our own physical well-being. I think a lot of people tend to shy away from thinking about trauma or thinking of themselves as traumatized because we want to live in a normal world and we're just trying to get through every day. But it's something that is actually more pervasive than I think we like to think about. So that's why I like to talk about it, kind of normalize that it's okay that we might go through traumatic experiences and just kind of reflect on what that means for our body, right? It's really about how does our body respond to those situations.
Thank you so much for helping us set the stage there. I don't know if this is valid on a scientific level, but I feel like we all have some sort of trauma that we've experienced just because of, social pressures and just, historically, things that have happened in our history, in our shared history that either, we either dismiss or we, make them taboos. And we were just speaking in our previous conversation with American Express that a lot of folks, specifically in the LGBTQ plus community, find it to be a taboo to seek professional help when it comes to our mental health and our physical health. So I would love to just hear you chime in on demystifying that taboo, and the importance of seeking out, at least to ask questions or to open up conversations. Do you have any advice for us there?
Yeah, I think we get kind of stuck in this kind of comparative suffering almost sometimes, my trauma wasn't as bad as someone else's, right? Like we can always find ways that it was worse, but it's really just about how our body responds and what that situation, how it impacted us. And I think, a lot of why I think about trauma is especially for marginalized communities or communities that that go through so much more, who maybe sometimes feel like they're on the periphery. So definitely the LGBTQ community, and people of color. And there's just so much there, I think, that we haven't addressed yet. And if we want to heal as a nation, I think we do need to talk about how there is so much trauma there, and what that looks like and feels like, and really open up about it so that we can all communally heal.
Active listening, right? That's something that I love speaking about, the importance of emotional intelligence and just hearing what people have to say about it, because it's something that I didn't grow up. I mean, I think I grew up intuitively knowing what emotional intelligence was. And then I got more into a creative career that allowed me to explore and express that. But I find that it's now, become this, interesting hot button topic that people are like, what is emotional intelligence and how do I listen to my body and make sure that I hold space for other people to express themselves? So I love that you are, destigmatizing that and helping us to step into more of this communal shared, resiliency that I know we're going to talk about resiliency a little later, but thank you so much for asking us to go deeper there.
Absolutely. And I think I'm so glad too that you bring that up, because it's something that we all need to practice and do, and we learn it along the way, right? It's not something that we necessarily innately know. So it's a skill, certainly. And so is resilience.
Absolutely. Okay, so as you've been working with patients and clients from marginalized communities, and specifically in the LGBTQ plus community, what are some ways that you've seen stress manifest in the body?
Yeah. So as I was kind of reflecting on this, a gentleman came to mind that I worked with years ago who I changed his name, but we'll call him Jarrell. And he identified as a Black gay man. And when I saw him, it was years ago before I knew much of what I knew now. And but when I thought back on his story and reflected on what he came with, he was coming with anxiety, some nightmares, PTSD-like symptoms where he was just having panic attacks, and depression, struggling with his blood pressure, his weight, gut issues, and all sorts of things, and saying like, gosh, I just feel really stressed at work, like having a lot of tension in his work environment. And and so those are very typical, as I reflected back, very typical presentations for stress-related issues. I mean, I think it's common, as you mentioned earlier, that we might think of mental health, right? Our anxiety, our depression, or things like that as being related to stress, but it goes beyond our mind. It's really a bodied experience as well, that we, changes with our blood pressure, our gut health. I've seen autoimmunity come out of trauma situations, our skin issues. So it's really our whole body is responding in a way that's good initially to try to save ourselves and preserve ourselves. But over time, if these stressful experiences continue and overwhelm the body, then they turn into these other manifestations.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that part of your lived experience and your patient's lived experience. And I say your lived experience because you're being very transparent with saying you didn't know certain things before. Now that a lot of folks are asking, let's adopt new language, let's change our mindset, let's break certain habits to adopt new habits so that we can be more inclusive. And I think, more leaders like yourself need to also say, like, previous to all of this, I didn't have so much in my toolkit. And now you're able to, piece more things together and also bring a more holistic vision to this work. So thank you so much. I'm a big fan of alternative medicine, and in a nice alliance with Western medicine. So I love also, in your introduction that I saw that you also lean into that as well. So if someone right now is listening and they might have some questions, about some things presenting in their body. I mean, of course, burnout is big in this time. A lot of the, people are talking about this, great resignation, and people saying, I've had enough. I need to do something different, or at least take a pause. For those who are listening now that might be on the fence about, do I listen to my body or do I not listen to my body? Can you encourage them to listen to their body and maybe
yes.
point
Please
out some
listen to your
signals?
body.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
I'll give you the mic.
Yeah. I think it's challenging, especially actually for people who have been through trauma, because one of the initial responses sometimes in some situations is that we have to shut off what our body is feeling. so that we can survive, so that we can mobilize to move beyond. And that kind of habit or way of preserving ourselves can become ingrained in the way that it does become very difficult to be attuned. I've seen some people who say, I didn't know emotions existed until I wound up in the hospital because of depression, right? Like, and she was in her 20s. I mean, that is a profound experience that she couldn't connect with her body or feelings at all. So I think I want to just recognize that for some people, that is really, really hard to do. And I think it takes a lot of safety, openness, coaching, guiding, and people who hopefully, like yourself, Marielle, as you've learned along the way, right? You've begun practicing this type of emotional intelligence. You can live and hopefully in more of a state of safety. And as we do that and we co-regulate with each other, which is so important, we can offer that space to other people and lower the threshold for them to experience it too. And I think that's a really powerful way that community can make such a difference in this experience.
Absolutely. Community is key. And I know that a lot of folks throw around the word community, and, social media might get us distracted on what community really means. We're social beings.
Yes.
And I have, if I feel stuck in some way, and even if I want to be antisocial and just stay in my cave, I find it helpful sometimes to share that energy with someone else who's willing to hold space with me and just let me, vent or breathe or just, practice active listening. So I love the reflection on, listening to our bodies, and asking for what we need and hoping that people will give us the psychological safety to do that. So this is actually a nice bridge into this next question. Would love to know how you define resiliency and what does it mean to be resilient?
Yeah. Well, I think our kind of classic understanding of resilience is this mental willpower, right? Like when you fall down 7 times, you're going to get back up 8 times, right? And just kind of overcoming what's the adversity of our environment. And when I kind of dig deeper into that for myself and with my clients, what I think about is, where does that willpower come from? And it comes from the body, right? That comes from a body that can develop that willpower. 90% of the signals of our body or in our body are coming from our body to our brain. So if we need that willpower to kind of overcome something, we have to have it in our body, right? And so I think that's why sometimes people are like, what do you like? Why are you talking about resilience? Because I'm not a mental health professional or, anything like that, but I really think about it in this embodied way, that it has to come from somewhere. And it comes from down here, I think, that heart and that gut and then just that sense. Yeah.
And it's connecting the body and the mind, right? I love this, that we're walking into that awareness more, specifically, people who aren't in the space of, therapy and medicine. And as we seek these support systems, we are acknowledging, and I'm speaking very generally, and I'm speaking this so that hopefully people can adopt this mentality as well, that our minds are not separate from our bodies and our bodies are not separate from our minds. And it's really important to bridge those two together because they function together. And I love that even in your introduction, the importance of food that is delicious and nutritious. We have been, a lot of us in the workspace who are working remote or hybrid, we're sitting down for hours and we're trying to express ourselves in a little square. And I would actually love to hear you speak to, how we can support our body's resilience, and specifically for people, because I know a lot of folks are listening now that are either working remotely or looking to work remote or hybrid. How can we support our body's resilience in this digital, physical world?
Yeah, I think it's challenging today, especially when we're feeling a little bit more disconnected and things like that. And so I love that you acknowledge that. And I think at the end of the day, it kind of goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. How can we attune to ourselves and what we need in the moment? And it's a learned way of being, right? This is a skill that we can develop over time, even if we don't feel like we have it right now. we can keep practicing, just keep checking in. I had a friend that's a social worker give me this kind of acronym that I just love to use sometimes. It's called HALT, and it's, are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? And she uses that with her 8-year-old just to pause in the moment. All right, we're having a little bit of a meltdown here. right? And if we can sometimes do that for ourselves, like, all right, I'm melting down a little bit. Like, what do I need right now? Do I need a little bit of food? Do I just need to step away from the computer? Or do I need to connect with somebody that is meaningful to me? Maybe I need to call a friend and just be like, I got to get this out, right? I think those are really important tools.
And I love that earlier you also highlighted the importance of community as well. So it's like this nice juggle or balance between the solitude, the self-work, that the individual needs to take, but also the importance of community as well. So what's a healthy way to bridge those two? Because I find that as I learn more about emotional intelligence, I'm finding this loneliness epidemic that is happening in the States specifically, and really globally as well. They've taken a lot of data there to see that a lot of people are feeling lonely. And I like to highlight that solitude is different from loneliness. And
Absolutely.
solitude is necessary because we need to be alone to connect with our bodies and to learn more. As you said, it's a skill that we can learn, and to have that open mindset as well to do that. And I know that might be might make people a little afraid to be with themselves for an extended period of time, like put the phone down, go look at yourself in the mirror and, say some positive affirmations or something like that. But my question would be, how can we start to demystify this loneliness epidemic that's happening, and get people into more, of balancing that solitude that we need to do independently, and also coming into physical community? Because I know digital community is cool, but we need that physical touch aspect.
We
so
do.
Please tell me about it.
Yeah. I mean, intimacy is so important, and not like, all the way intimacy, but just like that connection of being with each other, and that little touch that's just like really therapeutic sometimes, just a hug from somebody, or a touch on the elbow, or whatever feels comfortable to people. But I think it's so individualized, right? Like to know, like, when do I need to be with other people, or when do I need to be alone? And I think part of the challenge too is that, as you mentioned, sometimes that solitude can feel so uncomfortable that it's like, this can't feel right? Like if it feels this uncomfortable to me, it has to be wrong, and I must be with other people to silence these feelings, right? And I think it's challenging ourselves a little bit to go, stressing it just a touch, right? Not too much, but just, can we challenge ourselves a little bit to see if we can grow into that area, and to practice that solitude? It will feel uncomfortable in the beginning. When we make change, especially when we grow, it feels uncomfortable. And I think we have to embrace that discomfort a little bit to be able to move forward and to grow and to heal.
I love that. It's a little bit of being comfortable, while being uncomfortable.
Yes.
It's an art, actually, I would say.
I think so. I think you're right. And it's definitely an art and a skill at the same time. And so again, kind of using some of our therapeutic, like maybe professional relationships, maybe we do see a counselor to practice that art. How do I enter that space in a way? And if there's someone that you kind of connect with, and you're like, gosh, like they do that really well, like I want to know how to do that, you spend a little bit of time with them, maybe ask them, right? Like, how do I get to that space? Because when we can be with other people who are in that kind of space, that ventral vagus, which is a state of safety, and creativity and connection, then we are more able to enter that space too. So I think that it's just beautiful balance, right? And there's no really wrong way to do it, and there's no really right way to do it. It's not going to be a perfection thing, right? It's going to be a kind of a messy action thing.
I love that. Let's just throw perfectionism out the window. Please, if you're holding on to it because someone told you need to be perfect, or you are, you have adopted that mentality, throw that out the window and let's get messy, right? I love that. Let's get messy. And of course, with empathy, with, authenticity, practicing, holding space for ourselves and for each other. I mean, making sure that people can start to feel comfortable doing this as well. I think it's so important. And so I'd like to move into this next question here, because I know some folks might be on the fence on, like, I don't know if I just need to be on my own, go for a walk, or if I need to seek professional help. So what are some indicators that would that people can look into or tap into, that they need to go to a professional in order to recover their body's resilience?
I think that's a great question. And one thing that I think about is, how intrusive or interruptive are these symptoms, right? Are they kind of getting in the way of you being able to live the life you hope, right? Then that could be a signal that these are overwhelming your body. If you're kind of going along and you've got lots of coping tools, and maybe you kind of know how to nourish your body, how to get into movement, all those kinds of things, then you can use those things to help build your resilience. And, every once in a while, we're going to feel stressed and overwhelmed. That's pretty normal. But at the point that it really is like, I'm not spending time with friends anymore, like I'm staying inside, I'm missing days of work because I'm having so many headaches, like things like that, that those are definitely signals, I think, kind of some red flags that it's going beyond what we can cope with kind of on our own individual basis. And we probably need to connect with someone who, again, can help coach us into that state and help us learn to attune to our bodies. Like, what kind of nourishment do we need? What kind of movement do we need? All of those things that we might use as tools.
And I love your focus on the one-on-one service that you give to your clients. And I just love to tap a little more into your personal experience. What caused you to move into working this way? Because I know that, I'm sure many of us know people who work in the medical realm that, have 5 minutes to talk to someone, to talk to a client and try to diagnose them and try to get to know them, because they're, this illusory model of productivity in the medical space doesn't really allow for so much of that intimacy that you talked about. So I would just love to know, like, what helped you move into that space where you knew you needed to dedicate more one-on-one time with folks?
Yeah, I think it's, been this evolution over the years of just feeling like there's so much more that could be done for people, and kind of an alignment, going back to like, this is not just what I do, but it's kind of who I am as well. And trying to keep myself as integrated and as in alignment with my values as possible, that I want to really connect with people. And that's where we make meaningful change, right? Is when we can truly connect with one another, and where I can truly understand what their experience is like. That's where the magic that happens, right? That's where the art is. And I wasn't feeling like I could stay as aligned in the traditional model. So that's why I branched out on my own, and it works better for me. And I think it works better for my clients for them to get the results that they're hoping for. And it's really been a great shift for me.
Yes, Dr. Patterson, I hope that more folks are listening to this and maybe can be encouraged to move into working this way. Because I 1000% agree. At least, on an empathetic level, I want to be having an intimate relationship with someone who's knowing so much about me, and I don't want it just to be a data point or, a reservation for someone's time. So I appreciate the work that you're doing here. Yeah. So we've got about 5 minutes left, and I do have a live question here from Max, who writes, being a person who has autoimmune disorders galore, I'm in a constant state of stress and fatigue. Is there a quick tip you can give that helps to calm stress immediately?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Thank you, Max, for sending that in. And I think one thing that I have just been loving recently and trying to roll out with some of my clients is actually tapping, or the emotional freedom technique. And it's something that you can kind of learn to do on your own. There's apps out there, and it's just a great way to tune into your body, kind of rewrite some of the neurochemistry that's happening that's maybe got us ingrained in a state of stress or state of overwhelm. And it can just kind of help rewrite that. So in a matter of minutes, usually people feel a little bit better, that stress level will be lower and that cortisol level will be lower. And that can be really helpful for a lot of things. So that would be one easy way on your own, right? To kind of make some immediate change.
Thank you so much. And can you repeat the name? Because I'm familiar as well. But for those who might be like, what is tapping? Can you just share a little bit more about it as well? It's such a fantastic tool and skill that you all share with us, as being clients or looking for this extra support. So I would love for you to share a little bit more about, and so people can start to search and ask their medical professionals.
Yeah, it's tapping is one kind of the common term for it. And then the other name is the emotional freedom technique. And it's where people tap in different parts of their body, usually around their eyebrows, eyes, those, like around here as well. And you go through this process of tapping on these different places while you think of different things, usually a common theme, but you go through and try to break down some of the negative or false beliefs that we might be holding on to that keep our body a little stuck, and then adding in some positive beliefs and affirmations, mantras that can help us move forward into the future that we hope to live, right? Instead of staying in that past. So I think there's lots of great like apps out there. I'm trying to think of the one that I'm blanking on the name. It's called Tapping Solution. That's a good free app, I think, that people can download. And it will walk you through lots of different exercises and kind of whatever feels like it might resonate with you in the moment.
Great. I love that. And I can attest, I've done this before with a psychologist who also worked with alternative medicine, and I had no idea what we were doing, but I released so many tears, and I saw so much improvement even to this day, around a specific topic that she helped me unlock. And it's so special and important. I'm thankful that you brought this up. So tapping or emotional freedom technique. Thank you so much. So we've got about 2 more minutes left, and I would just love to give you the final word. You've encouraged us already so much with, being more mindful of listening to our bodies and connecting our bodies with our minds, and just, holding space for each other. Any final words of encouragement that you like to leave us with? And then please let us know how we can connect with you when we finish this conversation.
Oh, that's such a good question, Mariella. And I just want to say before I forget, thank you so much for your time and your energy and enthusiasm. Even though we're in these screens together, I feel so connected with you. And I'm just so thankful. But I would just say you deserve to feel better. You deserve to live the life that you want to, and to not be held back by stress or trauma. And it's okay to recognize that it might be happening to you. You don't have to stay there. And I know just want everyone to hear that they deserve to have that love and for themselves first, and then to embrace it with our community. So thank you for this space. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. And remind us how we can connect with you.
Yes. So you can find me online if you want to follow me on social media. I try to post tips and tricks to help get into the body or to nourish the body or move the body, things like that. You can find me at Christine Patterson, DNP, on both Instagram and TikTok. You can also find my website, www.vitaljourneywellness.com. And on there, if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about, is my body being impacted by stress? I have a scorecard on there, the Stress and Trauma Impact Score. So you can go on there, take a really quick quiz, and it will give you some actionable, customized tips to kind of help your body and nourish it in the right ways and things like that to kind of recover from the impact. So
awesome. Thank you, Dr. Patterson. I'm looking forward to staying connected, and I encourage folks who are listening to connect with Dr. Patterson. We only have 30 minutes, and she's got a wealth of knowledge, so make sure you connect with her and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Mariella.
Thank you.
And everyone. Thank you.